When love starts to hurt quietly, I used to think love looked like effort. Late night talks, apologies that stretched until dawn, tears followed by laughter, working through it as he called it. I thought that was what made relationships real. Not perfect, but earned. So when people said we were intense, I took it as a compliment. They didn't know how much we fought. They didn't see how his voice changed behind closed doors. And I didn't tell them. Because if I admitted it wasn't perfect, I'd have to admit it might not be love at all. His name was Ethan. We met when I was 22. Working 2 jobs, exhausted, invisible to most of the world. He noticed me instantly. He had that kind of charisma that felt dangerous, like standing too close to a flame, but not wanting to step away. He made everything seem electric. The first time we talked, he said, "You look like you've been waiting for someone to really see you." And I laughed, blushing, because no one had ever said something like that to me before. I didn't realize, not then, that it wasn't love. It was targeting. At first, he was everything I thought I wanted. He'd bring me coffee before work, text me good morning, beautiful every day, show up at my job just to walk me home. It felt like a movie, until it didn't. The first time he raised his voice, it was over something small. Me being late. He wasn't angry, he said, just disappointed. He told me I didn't respect his time, that if I loved him, I'd try harder. I remember apologizing, even though traffic had been bad. I remember him hugging me afterward, whispering, "See, we can fix anything if you just listen." After that, the apologies became routine. I was always sorry. Sorry for being late. Sorry for saying the wrong thing. Sorry for not smiling enough. Sorry for not being the version of me he liked best. Every time I cried, he said I was being dramatic. Every time I tried to leave, he told me I was throwing away something real. And every time I believed him, because when he was kind, when he was that man I first met, he was so kind, like nothing bad had ever happened, like the storm never existed. That's the thing about people like Ethan. They don't keep you by chains. They keep you by memory. A year in, he convinced me to move in. He said it would make things easier. No more miscommunication, no more distance. But the truth is, it made it harder to escape. He controlled everything. The bills, the schedule, even what I wore. He'd say things like, "That dress isn't you anymore," or "You don't need makeup, you're mine now." At first, it sounded sweet, but then I noticed. Every piece of me that used to belong to me started to disappear. I stopped seeing my friends. He said they didn't get us. He'd pout if I wanted to go out. So I stayed home. He'd say, "I just miss you," and I thought, God, he loves me so much. It wasn't love. It was isolation disguised as affection. The betrayal came slowly, not with another person, but with the realization that I had become one. Someone else, a stranger living my life. A woman who flinched when doors closed too loudly, who smiled at her boyfriend's jokes even when they hurt. I didn't even know when it happened, when love turned into control. Until one night, I found his phone on the counter while he showered. It buzzed once, twice, then again. A name I didn't recognize. Clara. I don't know what made me open it. Maybe curiosity, maybe instinct. What I saw wasn't romantic messages. Not yet. It was manipulation. Just like had done to me. "You deserve someone who actually listens. She doesn't appreciate you the way I would. If she doesn't want you to be happy, she's selfish." Every line was a mirror of things had once said to me. He was grooming her, the next version of me. When he came out of the shower, I was shaking. He saw the phone in my hand and froze. For a moment, he didn't say anything. Then, he smiled. "Baby," he said, wrapping the towel tighter, "you don't understand." He told me it was just talk, that he was testing her, trying to prove she wasn't trustworthy, that he was loyal, but I never believed him. And somehow, in that twisted, choking fog of words, I heard myself apologize again. It took me 3 more months to leave. 3 months of trying to convince myself that love wasn't supposed to feel like guilt, that I didn't owe him forgiveness just because he cried after hurting me. I left one morning while he was at work, packed what I could fit in my car and drove away. He called 32 times that day, then nothing. Silence. Until last week, he messaged me on Facebook, "Hey, I just wanted to say I'm proud of you. You made me realize what I lost." Then another. Do you ever wonder if maybe we both messed up? And for a split second, I felt that old familiar pull. The one that made me want to explain myself, to justify, to soften. But I didn't reply, because I finally knew the truth. So now, I ask myself, was I in an abusive relationship? Or was I the asshole for letting it go on for so long? Because that's what people like him do best. They make you question your pain. They make you wonder if you imagine the bruises that never show. But I know now. Love doesn't make you smaller. It doesn't silence you. It doesn't take and call it devotion. And the hardest part of healing wasn't leaving him. It was forgiving myself for staying. Party the monster who learned to whisper. It's strange how silence can become addictive. When you live in chaos long enough, peace doesn't feel natural. It feels loud. Every quiet morning, every gentle sunrise, every normal day feels like waiting for the storm to return. But with time, I started to breathe again. 3 years had passed since I left Ethan. 3 years of rebuilding, of therapy, of remembering who I was before he taught me to shrink. I'd moved to a new city, started a job I actually liked, and for the first time in forever, I laughed without checking if someone else approved. I didn't talk about him anymore. I didn't say his name. He was a chapter I burned. Or so I thought. It was a Thursday evening, the kind that smells like rain and old memories. When I saw him again, I was at the grocery store, headphones in, humming to some song I barely knew. And then I heard a voice behind me. Maya. It hit me like a ghost dragging its fingers down my spine. I turned, and there he was. Ethan. He looked different. Thinner, softer somehow. His hair was shorter, flecked with gray. But his smile, that same rehearsed, gentle smile, hadn't changed at all. Wow, he said, almost whispering. You look incredible. I froze, caught between old fear and new anger. He started talking before I could walk away. How life had been hard. How had been in therapy. How had learned a lot about himself. He said all the right things. All the things I once begged to hear. Apologies, accountability, self-awareness. Words polished like glass. And not that person anymore. He said softly. I just wanted you to know that. I nodded, numb. That's good. I'm glad you're doing better. I tried to leave, but he stepped closer. I never stopped caring about you, Maya. I just didn't know how to love right back then. It took everything in me not to flinch. Over the next few weeks, he started appearing again. Not aggressively, just present. A comment on one of my social media posts. A small world message after I mentioned a local cop. Then a casual we should catch up sometime, no pressure. And somehow, despite every warning siren in my head, I replied. Not because I wanted him back, but because part of me needed to see if he had really changed. It's a cruel curiosity. The kind survivors carry. We want to believe the monster can learn to whisper. We met at a quiet diner one afternoon. The kind of place where time slows down and the world feels harmless. He brought flowers, tulips, my favorite. He remembered. We talked for hours. He told me about losing his job, about rebuilding his life, about attending group therapy. He even admitted things I never thought he would. I hurt you, he said, and I've hated myself for it. You didn't deserve that. For the first time, I almost believed him. We started talking more. Messages, calls, small updates. He kept his distance, never pushed too hard. It felt safe, or at least safer than before. Sometimes I caught myself laughing at his jokes again. Old habits resurfacing like ghosts, soft, dangerous, familiar. I told myself it was fine, that forgiveness wasn't the same as weakness. Until the night everything fell apart. It was 2 a.m. when my phone buzzed. A message from a number I didn't recognize. Hi, you don't know me, but I think we should talk. It's about Ethan. I ignored it at first, assuming it was spam. Then another message came through. I found your name in his phone. He told me you were just a friend, but something feels wrong. My stomach sank. Her name was Lydia. We started texting, and slowly the story unfolded, too familiar to be coincidence. Had met her at a community support group 6 months ago. Had said he was recovering. That had been her too. He told her his ex, me, was the abuser, manipulative, controlling, unstable, had used my trauma as his alibi. My hands shook as I scrolled through Lydia's screenshots, messages from him, echoing every line had once used on me. The same charm, the same rhythm of guilt and tenderness. You're the only one who understands me. I just need someone who doesn't twist everything I say. You're not like her. You're better. He hadn't changed, had just evolved. I met Lydia a week later. We sat across from each other in a small cough, two women bound by the same man's lies. She was younger than me. Maybe mid-20s. Soft voice, tired eyes. The same kind of woman I used to be. We compared stories. The manipulation, the guilt, the sudden apologies followed by cold silences. It was identical, but there was one difference. She was pregnant. She told me she was scared. That had been so good to her at first, but lately had been distant. That when she mentioned the baby, he said she was trying to trap him. And then, she showed me a message. Maya would have never done this to me. My name, like a ghost he kept alive to haunt someone new. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, reading those messages again and again. It wasn't sadness that came. It was fury, not just at him, but at myself for believing, even for a second, that monsters could heal without consequences. The next day, I called Lydia and told her everything. The full truth, the gaslighting, the control, the fear. She cried. I cried. And for the first time in years, I felt something shift inside me. Not revenge, but release. A few weeks later, Ethan messaged me. You talked to her, didn't you? I didn't reply. You ruined everything. She was supposed to understand me. Still silence. You'll regret this. That was the last message I ever got from him. A month later, I heard from Lydia again. She'd left him. She and the baby were safe. And me? I finally blocked his number for good. It's been 2 years since then. I still think about it sometimes. Not him, but the pattern. How abuse can disguise itself as love. How control can sound like concern. How betrayal can wear the face of healing. Was I in an abusive relationship? Yes. Was I the asshole? No. But I spent years believing I was, because that's what abuse does. It doesn't break your bones. It breaks your reflection. Now, when people ask why I don't talk about my ex, I just say, some stories aren't meant to be rewritten. They're meant to be ended. And in that ending, I finally found what he could never give me. Peace that doesn't hurt. Party the echo he left behind. It's strange, the things that survive after a person's gone. Not their voice, not their face, but the echo of them. The way your body still braces when someone raises their tone. The way silence still feels like danger. It's been 7 years since I last saw Ethan. 7 years since the last text, the last threat, the last nightmare. I moved cities. Again, changed numbers, changed my name online, and for the first time I felt untethered from the version of myself he created. I built a new life, a real one. I worked in trauma recovery now, helping others rebuild what I once thought was impossible to repair. Sometimes I'd sit in group meetings, listening to stories that sounded eerily familiar. Different names, same ghosts, the same quiet apologies whispered after every bruise, visible or not, but I never mentioned my story, not by name. I always said, someone I knew. It was easier that way. Until one Tuesday morning, I got an email that started it all again. Subject, you don't know me, but I think I know him. Hi, my name is Chloe. I got your contact from someone at the shelter where I volunteer. I think we might have both known the same man. Ethan R. Please, if this is too much, ignore me. But I think you deserve to know something. For a moment, I just stared at the screen. The world blurred and my throat went dry. Ethan. The name I hadn't spoken in years. It was like hearing a dead language suddenly spoken aloud. I hesitated before replying. Half of me wanted to delete the message. The other half, the part that still wanted closure, couldn't. So I wrote back carefully. Hi Chloe, I did know Ethan. It's been a long time. What exactly do you want to tell me? Her reply came within an hour. I met him 3 years ago through mutual friends. He was charming, funny, the kind of guy who made everyone feel seen. But a few months in, things changed. He started talking about a crazy ex who ruined his life, said she spread lies about him, and destroyed his career. He said her name was Maya. I think that's you. My stomach dropped. It shouldn't have surprised me. But it did. Even after all this time, he was still rewriting the story. I replied simply, yeah, that's me. I wasn't the crazy one. What happened, Chloe? Her next message was longer. Too long. She told me had gotten worse. Paranoid. Manipulative. Had started isolating her. making her delete friends, checking her phone, accusing her of cheating when she so much as smiled at a stranger. Then, one night, he hit her. She left the next day. But here's the part that made me stop breathing. He had a son, she wrote. The boy's name is Adam. Has about 5 now. Ethan said the mother abandoned them. But when I met the child, he looked so much like Lydia. I felt the air leave my lungs. Lydia, the girl who had reached out to me years ago. Pregnant, scared, and hopeful. The one who promised me she'd never go back to him. And now she was gone. I didn't want to believe it. So I asked Chloe for more. Do you know what happened to the boy's mother? Her reply came the next morning. I'm not sure, but I think Ethan said she couldn't handle motherhood. He always spoke like she was weak. I tried to find her name online. Nothing, but I found something else. Attached was a link, a local news article. Headline: Man arrested following domestic dispute, child in protective custody. There it was. His name, Ethan R., age 41, arrested after a violent altercation at his apartment. The report said neighbors heard shouting, a woman's voice, a child crying. When police arrived, the woman Chloe was unharmed but shaken. The child had been placed in temporary care. It was dated 3 weeks ago. I didn't know what possessed me to do it, but I called the local shelter in that city. I explained who I was, that I was once connected to him, that I just needed to know if the child was okay. The woman on the phone hesitated, then said softly, Adam is safe. That's all I can tell you. But then she added, almost reluctantly, you should know he asks about his mom every day. He keeps saying she went to sleep and didn't wake up. My blood ran cold. I hung up. Then I cried for the first time in years. Not just for Lydia, but for that little boy. For the version of myself that once loved the monster who made him. Weeks passed, and I tried to move on again. But something in me wouldn't let go. So I started writing. A letter to Adam. I didn't know if he'd ever read it, but I wrote it anyway. I told him that his mother was brave, that she wasn't weak, that she fought to leave, and that sometimes love can be a weapon, and surviving it doesn't make you broken. It makes you extraordinary. I mailed it to the shelter, no return address. And then, one morning, I got a reply. It was from the same shelter. A social worker had passed the letter along to the boy's temporary guardian. They said he smiled when he heard the story about his brave mom. And then they wrote, we think you might be the only person who can help us tell him who she really was. I visited them a month later. It was surreal. Walking into that small, sunlit office, holding a stuffed bear ID bought the night before. And then I saw him, Adam. Small, quiet, with Lydia's eyes. He looked at me for a long time, then asked, did you know my mom? I nodded, yes. She was my friend. He smiled, a shy, fragile smile. She told me she was gonna keep me safe. I blinked back tears. She did, sweetheart. She really did. And for the first time in my life, I believed it. That night, I went home, sat at my desk, and finally started writing my story. Not for revenge, not for closure, but for truth. Because if there's one thing I learned, it's this. Abuse doesn't always end when you leave. Sometimes it lingers. In memories, in scars, in the lives of those who come after. But healing does too. It echoes through the people you save, through the silence you reclaim, through the stories you dare to tell. So no, I wasn't the asshole. I was the survivor. And for the first time, I wasn't scared to say it out loud.